Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Room. This is Josh Rhodes, obviously, and I'm here to talk about my race truck, the Losi LMT Warpath chassis that I had modded and built at the beginning of this year to be what I consider to be one of the ultimate race trucks out there on the circuit. And I'm very proud of it, so let's just get right to it. I'm going to show the thing off to you right now, and we're going to talk about it. All right, and there she is. This is what she's like in her current state. This truck has performed very well for me since I built it. Just to talk about some of its accomplishments, two straight Trigger King Pro Mod Racing overall event wins in a row, one Trigger King Pro Mod Bracket Racing win, one the second day at RC Fest in Pro Mod driving this truck. My personal favorite moment with this thing was beating Weston Anderson with it at RC Fest in just a practice race, a fun race. Also, this truck beat Bari Musar's. First truck I ever beat Bari with. So if Bari ever watches this, I got you. I got you. Haha. But anyway, let's talk about it though. Let's talk about the Warpath chassis. So the next clip you're going to see, the body is going to be off. All right, as I rip the body off of this thing, I wanted to point this out. A lot of people ask me all the time, how do your lights work? Well, they are in there like that. These are a 12mm bolt LED that you can get on superbrightleds.com. They do have a blue version, so if you want to do Son of a Digger, you can do that. They go down, they wire into a plug that goes into an extension that goes into the receiver right there. So when the truck turns on, we have lights. And there it is, the SoCal RC Monster Trucks Warpath chassis. This is the latest and greatest LMT version of this chassis. And what makes it unique, obviously, is that it's carbon fiber. It's something that I haven't ran in a really long time as far as chassis go, is carbon fiber chassis. But the one thing that makes it really unique is this option to where you can run a dual rear sway bar. There are a lot of chassis out there that do not offer this option, and I think that they need to start looking into it because this dual rear sway bar setup is something that keeps this truck really planted in the rear end going down a straightaway. I've had a lot of trucks over the years. I've never had one stay as planted to where I can literally be full throttle on a straightaway in a racing event with this thing and still be able to make a corner with it. It's flat out awesome the way that this setup works, and kudos to Trevor for being able to make this work on SMT 10s as well as this Losi version of his chassis. It's excellent. The other thing that's really cool about this is not even really the chassis part of it. Trevor sends you this spacer right here where you can run different style Losi springs on this. This particular spring is a pink Losi spring. Obviously it's not the color pink, but that's the color that it's coded as, is a pink spring. And if you look with that spacer that he has sent with this chassis, that's a stock shock. And you know how long the stock springs are. If I had one sitting next to me right here, I would show it. But you're getting full suspension travel out of that shock with that short spring on it, with that spacer that he has supplied for you right there. It's uncanny how awesome that is, and it really makes this truck work. Alright, so I'm not a wiring guy, as you guys can see. You got a lot of long wires in here that I've just zip tied together to keep them out of the way of each other. It's just something that I do. So I know it's cluttered looking. I apologize. I'm not the greatest wiring guy in the world. Though I did just finish wiring up this brand new speed controller that's in this. This is a Tekin RX8 Gen 3. It's a brand new speed controller to me. I've never ran a Tekin speed controller in a truck. I've never ran a Tekin motor in a truck. I've not even taken this out for a test drive. I just know it works. I had a Castle system in this originally because that's all I had at the moment. But at the end of the year, I decided to put something bigger in here, something that is more race oriented, and the RX8 is one of the best speed controllers on the market, so it got tossed into this truck. I also have one of their Pro 4 HD motors in here, probably one of the bigger motors that I've ran. It's actually about the same size of a motor as what I have in the Freestyle truck, so it's got a lot of power to it, we got a 2S Spectrum battery in here. This is a 7.6 volt 2S, 120C battery. This is what I've been using for Pro Mod. I've also got a couple of these for my retro trucks as well. They run off of these 120C batteries. Just get a little bit more speed out of them. It's a real lightweight race setup. It's got a real lightweight battery, real lightweight speed controller, a real lightweight everything on it. But one thing you do have to do to these trucks is you do have to add weight to the back. Trevor does it a different way. Trevor has a brass piece that is exactly the weight of the front servo, which I have here, which is excuse me, almost said it was a Tekin servo. This is a Reef's Raw 500 that I have on the front here to race with. On the back, Trevor has a weight on a lot of his trucks. It's just a golden looking brass weight that sits on the back of the truck that is the exact same weight as the servo. Me, on the other hand, I didn't go that route. I went the cheap route. So I put a bunch of sticky weights and spread it evenly out on the back of this chassis, and it's pretty close to the same weight as the servo up front. These are just, like I said, you can buy them. They're Losi sticky weights that you can stick anywhere on your vehicle. This may not look very realistic, but it gets the job done. This is my makeshift little flag mount that I have here. It's basically 2 zip ties glued together with a flag mount from JB Scale Graphics and a JB Scale Graphics flag on the back of it. It sits very well. It looks very good while it's racing. I have no complaints on it. I've literally just zip tied that as tight as I could to that bar, and I put some CA glue there so it doesn't break loose or anything like that. And it's held all year long. I'm actually very surprised. It's one of the better flag mounts I've ever made. It's just something that I came up with in my head, and it's working out really well. Now, folks, here's where it gets interesting. This is kind of a hybrid setup on this truck. It is not an LMT. You could probably see the LMT obviously has the transmission straight up and down on the side plate of its chassis. This truck is, like I said, it's a hybrid kind of design where it combines an SMT10 transmission to work with the LMT axles. So that's what I'm going to show you next. I'm going to do my best here. I've got my cell phone right here for light. It's not the greatest light in the world, but you can kind of see what I'm going at here. That's an SMT10 transmission from Hot Racing with a Traxxas 50T gear on it that allows me to run the pinion that I have on there. And honestly, I cannot remember off the top of my head what size pinion that is that's on this thing. But it fits, it works well. The one issue that I did have, I gotta put my phone down, that's bothering me. Gotta hold this with both hands. The one issue that I did have with this is this main gear, as I almost knocked the truck over, this main gear out here, this Traxxas 50T, didn't quite line up correctly with the pinion. So when it would spin, it would be a very loud, almost clicking noise that you would hear as the truck falls over. I'm going to leave that in. That's just a little bit of a blooper. Look how far that motor extends back, too, off of that brass plate. That's just amazing to me. But that would not spin right. So what I had to do was, and you can barely see it back here, you see that green piece back there? Directly in front of it is the piece that mounts this gear on. And when I put that gear on there and screwed it in, I found that the screws were actually touching that green spot back there, and it was making the gear not spin straight. And the gear itself, I don't know if it's a molding error or what, the gear itself is not quite straight. But I went back in there and I threw 2 washers on the back of that gear and then screwed it in, and it made it to where the bolts were no longer going so far through that they were hitting that. It pushed it out a little bit, and now it spins very smooth. It spins very, very smooth. It's way, way better than it was, and this is just something I solved recently. The first transmission that I had in here was actually out of my Gravedigger 7 truck just so I could race this thing. And it ran well, but it had that click and that whine to it. It sounded like the thing was about to fall apart, but it was still bad fast. This is just something that I've done recently to the truck, and I think it's going to perform very well. The other thing to note here is this is an MIP drive shaft that we have in this truck. This is for SMT10s. You have to use, obviously, your LMT gearing that comes from your axle. From your axle inside where your ring and pinion is, out to the drive shaft. But you have to shave that down. I don't have the measurement in front of my head of what you have to shave it down to, but you do have to shave down the top portion of your ring and pinion gear to make it to where this actually fits correctly and you can get the holes to match up with each other. I've got as close to tolerance as I can possibly get. As you can see, this thing does not move out very much at all, if at all. So get those holes to line up, screw that through, and you got yourself one heck of a little bit of a race truck here. Even though I'm not a giant fan of the way the SMT10 drive shafts look, they aren't centered, and to me, I want something that's centered, but you can't argue with what works, and this chassis obviously works very, very well. With that said, let's take a look at just another couple of features that are on this thing. Now, one thing I will tell you is the links that go from the sway bars to the axle are stuff that you have to buy separately from the chassis. Trevor does not include that with the truck. I don't, like I said, I don't have the part numbers and stuff off the top of my head, but I will look them up and I'll put them in the description of this video down below. The other thing, the axles that were underneath this truck were on a truck that I had cut up, stock Losi LMT10, and I threw them underneath this truck and got rid of it. I had a race Gravedigger truck that I had built with a green chassis and everything. It wasn't really a race truck as far as I was concerned. It was just something I threw together to be fairly competitive at racing with. This truck, this one I feel like I could take to, say, one of the biggest events, RC Monster Truck World Finals, and run very well with it. The Dan Falco and Kyle DeFalco's race, RC Monster Truck Challenge World Finals, I feel like I'd run very well out there with this particular truck. I think the secret to this thing is two things. The secret to this chassis is that dual rear sway bar and the fact that you have stock Losi LNT shocks on this thing with shorter springs, but you're getting full travel with those springs, and that's something that really helps this truck jump and land and go to the next obstacle, and that really helps out in racing. If I wanted to freestyle this thing, I could tear it up really quickly. I mean, Trevor can freestyle the heck out of his trucks. Don't get me wrong. Trevor's very, very good at freestyle himself. However, this thing's not going to last as well as a fully modified out trail truck like what I have. I don't really ever want to freestyle this truck. This truck was built for racing purposes. I have symmetric bearings in this thing. They are a very expensive bearing to get, but they are very, very smooth, and they don't really require too much terrible maintenance to them. At least that's what I found out. And like I said, they are in every part of the axle on these trucks. They still spin very smoothly, and I've had them all year long. They've not failed me at all. I love them. I don't know why I decided to throw that much money just into bearings, but hey, it works. They spin very, very freely, and they work very, very well. It's a very bad, fast truck. And to think that I had that transmission issue going on for quite some time in the thing, and I just sat down yesterday, and figured out if I put some washers behind that gear, maybe it would free that transmission up just a little bit. And now it's fully free. I can't imagine how fast this truck is going to be now that it's completely 100% freed up and ready to go. This truck, like I said at the beginning of the video, it's won Trigger King events, fastest qualifier at the Bigfoot Open House this year, the 5 in a row TK, 5 in a row top qualifiers with Trigger King, 2 overall event championships, 1 racing bracket win with Trigger King, and 4 brackets. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. RC Fest won the second day and finished 3rd the first day. So if there was an overall event championship, it was that truck as far as racing goes. Overall, I'm very proud of this truck, and I want to give a huge shout out to Trevor and SoCal RC Monster Trucks. This chassis is very, very well built, and it's a really cool hybrid between 2 monster truck platforms that work very well together. So if you want to check them out, SoCal RC Monster Trucks on Facebook as well as Instagram. I will have that description in the description below. Hope you all enjoyed the video. We'll see you soon.